Welcome to my channel. In a storm no pilot dared to enter, Captain Rhea Caldwell took her battered A-10 Warthog into the sky, alone, outnumbered, outgunned, and written off as nothing more than a relic. She fought through fire and steel to drag her squadron back from the edge of death. They said the storm was too thick, that no pilot could hold course in those winds. But I've never been good at listening when it counts. My name is Captain Rhea Caldwell, and if this is the day I vanish, I want the story told right. No edits, no medals, no fluff. The chaos started above Eldridge Pass. Sirens howled, and tracer rounds tore bright scars through the ash-colored sky. 3 F-16s that had once roared across the skies with pride now spiraled, broken. 2 pilots were bleeding. One was flying on sheer will. Their formation had splintered, and without cover, they'd be dead within minutes. That's when I came in, a scarred old A10 Thunderbolt, crawling out of the clouds like a battered dog refusing to die. They call it the Widowmaker's Mule. I call it home. They used to call me other things, too. Cargo Queen, Hangar Ghost, that girl with the relic. No one believed I had any business in the fight, but I knew different. Wind kicked hard as I sat in the cockpit on the southern ramp of Brisbane Airfield, 30 clicks north of the fire line. The winter sun barely cracked through the clouds, painting the tarmac in shades of brass and regret. My warthog crouched like a tired predator at rest. The paint on her nose was flaked, the shark teeth worn from sandstorms, and too many scrapes with death. But she still had bite. The other pilots smirked when I walked into mission briefing that morning. Same looks, same whispered jokes. Lieutenant Caldwell, good at logistics, better at fixing coffee. One of them, Hamilton, had circled a doodle on his notepad of a warthog crashing into a cargo crate. I stood silent. They didn't see the maps I studied in the mess while they played cards. Didn't hear me running simulations on an old laptop long after lights out. Didn't care that every mission I touched landed with fewer body bags than theirs. They didn't want careful. They wanted fast and loud. But today, fast and loud had gotten them shot to hell. I raised my hand in the briefing. Stagger the flight paths. Use the ridge for cover. We can limit exposure and hit hard. No response. Not even a nod. Hamilton chuckled. Cute. Got a cargo route to show us too? I closed my notebook. Left without another word. Out on the tarmac. The only ones who gave me respect were the crew chiefs and wrench turners. They'd seen me under the warthog's belly, grease on my face, checking hydraulics until my fingers cracked. I didn't trust another soul to prep her for war. Every bolt I touched mattered. Every line of code I checked on her HUD was a promise. This machine won't fail me. I ran my palm along her side before climbing in. Felt the shiver in her hull. She was ready. Let's show them, I whispered. As the canopy sealed and green lights danced across the panels, the world narrowed to gauges, steel, and sky. A quiet came over me, like always. Not the silence of fear, the silence of purpose. Once tower cleared us, I pushed the throttles. The A-10 surged forward like a beast uncaged. She wasn't sleek. She wasn't fast. But she moved with the weight of something inevitable. We lifted into the sky. This is Crow Flight 2. I'm on station, I said, voice calm. Below us, the valley shimmered. Smoke rose from ridgelines, and in the distance, I could already see movement. Armor pushing hard against our lines. I dropped altitude, hugging the contours of Eldridge Ridge. The warthog growled beneath me, ready to strike. The others were still scrambling into position. I had no time to wait. This was my shot, my sky, my storm, and I'd make damn sure they remembered the name Rhea Caldwell. Smoke bloomed in the cold air like ink in water. I swept low, nose down, hugging the edge of the ridge. Beneath me, enemy armor crawled across the snow-choked pass, their turrets scanning the slopes for signs of fire. They didn't see me. Not yet. Crow Flight, eyes on target. I said into the mic, adjusting my trim. Lining up run. The A-10 isn't fast, but when it lines up, it delivers hell. I angled toward the lead tank in the column, flipped master arm, and pressed the trigger. The cannon's roar filled my bones. GAU, 8 Avenger, 40 rounds a second. The sky rippled with fire and steel. The first tank exploded in a storm of metal and flame. Debris scattered like bones across the snow. Behind it, the others shifted frantically, tracks grinding against ice, soldiers scattering. I dropped 2 bombs downrange, watched them detonate with staggering force. Armored vehicles thrown into the air like toys. Direct hits. Someone crackled over comms, one of the other A-10 pilots. Reaper armor disrupted. Keep pressing. I climbed, not too far, just enough to see the chaos below. Black smoke, fleeing infantry, the broken spine of an assault force torn apart. We regrouped in the clouds, the other Warthogs joining me in a slow arc. And then the alarm screamed. RWR spike, I called. Multiple radar locks. It didn't come gradually. It hit all at once. Enemy aircraft, fast movers, diving in from high above. Contrails slashed the sky. Bandits. MiGs, by the look of their speed and signature. I didn't hesitate. Bandits 11 o'clock high. Crow flight, jettison tanks, dive into cloud cover. My fingers moved on instinct. Flares burst from my wings as I broke hard left, pulling my Warthog into the storm bank. A missile raced past me, close enough to rattle the frame. Behind me, the comms cracked with panic. One of the rookies, Crow 3, couldn't drop fast enough. His drop tanks were still on. His voice broke in static and fear as tracers ripped across his tail. I couldn't let him die. I cut across the MiGs, a fat, slow beast interrupting their perfect triangle. They scattered momentarily, confused by my angle. The Warthog wasn't supposed to challenge them like this. But I didn't need to match speed. I needed to break their rhythm. Crow 3, break right, dive under me. Now. I followed him into the cloud, visibility collapsing to 0. Everything vanished. White swallowed the sky. Fly instruments. 3-degree climb, heading 270. I barked. Do not drift. Crow 3 followed, his voice tight, but alive. I could hear the fear trying to squeeze him. I kept mine buried. The MiGs followed us into the storm, but the cloud gave me the edge. Their radar couldn't hold a lock. They couldn't fly tight in this soup. I knew these mountains. I'd memorized the wind patterns, the turbulence pockets. The cloud was my terrain, not theirs. We punched out of the haze at the edge of a ravine, and that's when I saw it. Crow 3 dead in the water, caught on a bad vector. A MiG lined up on him. I rolled. My jet cut across his nose and took the shot meant for him. The tracers missed by inches. I felt one graze the armor skin of my left wing. The panels shrieked. But I stayed up. Keep moving, I snapped. Don't think. Just follow. I pulled him back into the clouds. Behind me, 2 more blips closed in. The fight was far from over. But they'd made one mistake. They thought I was just a support pilot flying an old beast. They didn't know who I was. And they didn't know what I could do inside a storm. The MiGs came fast. 2, maybe 3. My radar screamed with locks. My warning lights flared red across the panel like a bleeding wound. Break formation, I ordered. Climb 500, flare twice, bank into blind. The cloud swallowed us again. Silence returned, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind that hides things with teeth. I dialed my trim down, rode the A10 like a sled on the edge of a cliff. She groaned, but held. My pulse matched her vibration, one rhythm, one beast. Then came the flash. Through a crack in the vapor, I saw the shimmer of metal. A MiG, nose on, closing fast. I didn't have the turn rate to meet him in time, but I didn't need to. He fired. I jerked the stick. My Warthog kicked left, tracers snapping across the canopy in screaming lines. He overshot by a hair. I rolled, inverted, kicked the rudder, leveled, and then it was my shot. I fired. The cannon roared. The enemy jet shattered in a blink, debris spiraling through the storm. No explosion, just disintegration. The cloud devoured his remains. No cheers. No breath. Only the alarm of my own jet now joining the wounded. One hydraulic system read. Fuel dropping. Damage report. I muttered, checking panels. My girl had taken it hard, but she wasn't quitting. Not yet. Then came another flash, another fighter, slicing low. I dropped my nose, gave him a hard dive, locked, and squeezed. The Avenger cannon spit tungsten death. A wing tore free, his fuselage spun out, fire in his wake. Crow 2 confirmed, I said into the mic. But the response didn't come. Just static. Dead air. Crow 3, report. Nothing. I was alone. I tapped the radar, one faint signature, limping, smoking. I turned. Out of the storm came a half-broken A-10. Its canopy was cracked, smoke curling from the fuselage, wings jittering under uneven weight. The pilot inside slumped slightly, barely holding his control. 3, I said. I've got you. Hold steady. His voice broke through weak. Rhea, help me land. I didn't answer. I just moved. I matched his speed, slipped beside him in close formation, keeping my wings aligned with his. My own jet sputtered, but I didn't flinch. Then a blip. Another one. Another contact limping into view. Crow 1. I couldn't believe it. His A-10 was scraped down to the bones. One wing sheared badly, engines barely whispering. 2 wounded. Both alive. Both counting on me to guide them back. Form on me, I said. No deviation. We're heading home. I didn't know if we'd make it. My own fuel was a whisper. Systems blinking red. But I wasn't going to let them fall. Not today. I held the formation tight. Below us, jagged mountain teeth waited to shred anything that dropped too low. Above, the clouds churned with ice and thunder. Between it all, 3 A10s limped home. One flown by a rookie dripping blood onto his stick, another barely breathing, and one held together by spite, memory, and steel. Mine. Crow 3, you're trailing smoke, I called out. Feather engine 2. Try to stabilize flow. No reply, just a flicker of compliance on his throttle readout. Crow 1 fell in behind us. The right side of his fuselage was torn open like someone had tried to rip off his wing with a crowbar. He shouldn't have been airborne, but somehow he was. The air was thinner up here and colder. My breath fogged inside my mask. Warning lights stabbed at my vision. Fuel was bottoming out. Right engine, damage. Left flap, limited authority. Hydraulics, compromised. I tuned it all out. This was the path now. We make it or we don't. Ahead, through a thinning in the clouds, I saw the first glint of tarmac, Brisbane Airfield. Home. Approach, this is Crow 2. 3 aircraft inbound, critical. Request immediate priority. Static. Then a crackled response. Crow flight, copy. Visual confirmed. Emergency crews standing by. They saw us. We're going to land single file, I said calmly. 3, you're first. Keep the nose down, ride it out. 1, you're second. I'll come last. My jet jerked hard to the right. Something ruptured underwing. I countered with trim, my arms screaming as I fought the stick. But I didn't break. Crow 3, I said again. You've got this. He lined up, dropped gear. The wheels buckled beneath him, but he stayed on course. His bird hit the runway hard, dragging smoke and flame. It veered, but held. When it skidded to a halt, rescue crews rushed in. Then Crow 1. He staggered in slower, every second a gamble. Gear came down late, one leg buckling. He hit and bounced, then landed again, hard enough to tear metal from the fuselage. But he was alive. My turn. I pulled back, lined up final. My heart was steady. My hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. The Warthog rattled. The right engine coughed black smoke. The gear made an ugly grind as it dropped. Come on, girl, I whispered. Just one more. I dropped her hard. No grace, no finesse, just contact, hard rubber against steel. The frame screamed. The left brake failed, but I compensated with rudder, pulled her straight, and held the roll. When we stopped, I didn't move at first. Then I climbed out. Boots hit the frozen ground. Silence. Crew stood still. Mechanics, medics, even the commander, everyone stared. I was torn, smoke blackened, gear shredded. But I was on my feet. And I wasn't alone. The wind hit me like a slap. Cold and clean, sharp enough to wake ghosts. I dropped from the ladder and felt the solid concrete under my boots. That moment, just standing, was louder than any explosion I'd ever flown through. 2 other Warthogs sat mangled behind me, one still leaking fuel, the other with rescue crews dragging out its half-conscious pilot. The crowd was silent. Ground crews had stopped moving. Even the tower crew stood frozen on the catwalk above, binoculars slack at their chests. I knew that look. It was the same one they gave the Medal of Honor wall. All in confusion, because I wasn't supposed to survive. And neither were the others. The commander stepped forward. Colonel Varys, cold, stiff, and famous for having zero patience for pilots he didn't handpick. He didn't speak, just stared at my aircraft like it had crawled back from hell. And maybe it had. I unclipped my helmet and tucked it under one arm. My hair was soaked in sweat, my face lined with soot and blood. Not mine, I think. I saluted. It wasn't crisp, but it was solid. He didn't return it. Instead, he walked slowly around my A10, his boots echoing against the tarmac. He trailed a hand along the torn fuselage, fingers brushing the jagged edges where the cannon barrel had blistered from overuse. 3 aircraft, he muttered. No losses. I didn't respond. He turned, studying me. We expected all 3 of you to go down. That was the forecast, sir, I said. You broke formation. I took command. He exhaled slowly, a long sound more like release than reproach. I watched the tape, he said. You took fire meant for Crow 3. Covered Crow 1 into cloud cover. Picked 2 bandits off in the storm. Then dragged 2 dying birds across 70 miles of frozen sky. His tone was flat. No praise. Just facts. Why? I looked at him and didn't blink. Because nobody else did. A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. He studied me again. Not the way you look at someone beneath you, but the way you study someone you've never really seen before. Then he nodded once, slow, deliberate. The kind of nod that makes silence fall harder. He turned to the crowd. Get her bird to bay. Priority 1. That was it. No medals. No speeches. Just a change in tone, and in how everyone looked at me. They used to call me the girl with the hand-me-down aircraft. Now, they didn't say anything. They just moved. Because that day, something had changed. The sky had learned who I was. And it remembered. I didn't see the logbook entry until hours later. One of the techs, a kid named Felix, handed it to me while I sat alone in the hangar, legs dangling off a fuel crate. I just finished wiping the blood from the instrument panel with my sleeve. I hadn't spoken a word since touchdown. Mechanic wrote this. Felix mumbled, rubbing the back of his neck. Didn't know if you'd want to see it. I took the clipboard. His fingers were shaking. Mission summary. 8:13 to 11:01. 3A. 10 aircraft returned. All aircrew, alive. Damage, critical across all units. Survivability attributed to pilot of Crow 2. Note. Mountain Angel, call sign confirmed. Mountain Angel. I'd never heard that name before. Not for me. Not from anyone. They'd always just called me the Warthog Girl. I didn't know what to make of it. This title that sounded like it belonged to a ghost. Someone better than me. Someone whose hands didn't tremble when the mask came off. I folded the page and tucked it inside my flight suit. Not for memory. Just to make sure no one else got their hands on it. That night, I sat with the ground crew in Base 6. First time in months I'd joined anyone for food. They didn't talk much, just pushed warm rations in my direction, passed me coffee, checked my eyes for shock without saying anything. It meant more than medals. Hamilton passed me once, the same guy who used to crack jokes about cargo pilots with daddy issues. He didn't say a word, just kept walking. Someone had repainted the shark mouth on my A10's nose by then. Cleaner lines. Fresh red. Still chipped in places, but stronger now. Smiling wider. They even scrubbed the old nickname from the fuselage, the one someone had etched in grease weeks ago. She delivers boxes. Gone. In its place, someone had stenciled 2 words. Crow 2. That was all I ever wanted, really. A place in the formation. A place in the sky. I was still sore, still bruised. My hands were raw. But for the first time, no one questioned if I belonged up there. They knew, and I didn't need to explain. 2 days after the mission, I was called to the debrief room. Not the usual one either, the big one near Ops Command, with the thick glass doors and the brass nameplates that never bothered with pilots like me. Inside were 5 people. Colonel Varys, a pair of intelligence officers I'd never seen before, and 2 brass from fleet coordination. They didn't smile. I walked in and stood at attention, even though my side still ached from where the seat straps had dug into my ribs. Captain Caldwell, one of the intel guys, said, his voice flat. Do you know what kind of firestorm your flight set off in Central Command? I was a little busy keeping people alive, I replied. He didn't flinch. You weren't cleared to command that flight. No one else was commanding it. Another officer leaned forward. You broke flight doctrine, violated direct formation protocol, and deviated from return paths without tower clearance. Correct. They looked at each other. Then Varys spoke. And yet, 3 aircraft returned. All pilots alive. 2 severely wounded. And you walking. I nodded. He slid a folder across the table. It was thick. Too thick for one mission. Your file was reviewed, he said. We've known about your record, of course. But some of the folks who made earlier evaluations, they're no longer in position. I raised an eyebrow. That explained a lot. Crow 2, he continued. You're being offered a reclassification. That stopped me. You mean reinstatement? Something more. Instructor certification. Frontline combat designation. Evaluation authority. You'd train pilots like Crow 3, prepare them for what the books don't teach. I should have felt something. Pride maybe. Or vindication. But all I felt was the weight of that choice. What about the A10? I asked. One of the brass smiled faintly. You'd get the pick of the fleet. No, I said. I want her. Confusion flashed across the table. You mean your current airframe? That Warthog's seen 6 lifetimes of abuse. She brought me and 2 broken birds home. She's not retiring before I do. They exchanged looks again. Then Varys chuckled. The first time I'd ever seen the man show actual amusement. Give the mountain angel what she wants, he said. She earned it. They cleared my file by noon. By sundown, my new call sign was listed in the squadron roster. Crow Lead. The first thing I did wasn't celebrate or sign forms. I went back to Hangar 6. My Warthog was there, still smoking faintly from her wounds, but standing proud. They'd scrubbed the grime off her skin and painted over the worst of the battle scars, but not all. I didn't want them polished out. Some stories are better told through dents and carbon scoring. Felix was under the belly, hands deep in a hydraulic line. You're not grounded? He asked, sliding out wide-eyed. Not anymore, I said. They want me to teach. He sat up, wiped his hands. You're really gonna do it? Yeah, but not like they think. Not classrooms and chalkboards. I pulled a worn notebook from my flight bag and flipped through pages of sketch terrain, alternate approaches, storm routes. Notes I'd been building since day one. Not for anyone else. Just for survival. They need pilots who don't wait for orders to start thinking, I said. They need ones who know when to break formation and when to hold the line. Not just copybook cowboys with clean boots and sharper haircuts. Felix grinned. You think they'll listen? They will. Or they won't come home. Later that night, I walked the length of the flight line. The wind off the ridge was sharp again. The sky above Brisbane glowed with the pale blue haze of incoming snow. I passed Crow 3's bird, now stripped for full overhaul. He'd be grounded for months, but alive. I saw him earlier, sitting in a wheelchair beside the infirmary window. He raised his coffee in silent salute as I passed. He remembered. Crow 1 too. He limped down the line beside the ground crews, talking systems and survival kits. Quiet now, but different. His arrogance had burned off somewhere between missile trails and mountain air. They didn't call me Cargo Queen anymore. They didn't call me anything, really. But I heard whispers when I passed. That's her. That's the one who didn't leave them. And maybe that's enough. The base was quiet at night. Not silent. Brisbane never truly slept, but the chaos dimmed. The whine of distant generators, the hiss of a snow plow near the southern gate, the low murmur of guards on rotation. I sat in the cockpit again, canopy open, moonlight spilling across the panel like a memory. There was a new nameplate waiting in the mailroom. Captain Rhea Caldwell, Crow Lead. I hadn't claimed it yet. I didn't fly for recognition. I flew because there was always someone waiting on the ground who didn't know if they'd make it to tomorrow. That was the job. No glory. No dramatics. Just survival delivered in steel and fire. The kind only a Warthog could carry. I reached for the throttle lever and held it like I had 100 times before. Not pushing forward. Not powering up. Just holding. Feeling the weight. The truth of it. Trust the machine, my instructor once said. But trust yourself more. It hadn't meant much back then. But now? Now it was gospel. I thought about the younger pilots coming in next week. New assignments from bases I'd never heard of. They'd see my bird and assume it was scrap. Some of them would probably try to mock it. Call it a relic. Say it belongs in a museum. Let them. They'd learn the way I did. When the sky's falling, you don't pray for fast. You pray for the thing that never quits. The thing with teeth. I slid the canopy closed and sat in silence, my breath fogging the inside of the glass. Tomorrow, I'd fly again. Not to prove anything, but to show them what it looks like when a ghost pilot teaches others how to survive. By the end of the week, the nickname had stuck. I never claimed it. Didn't put it on my bird or wear it on my patch. But they said it with a different tone now, half reverence, half awe. Like they were still trying to decide if I was real. Mountain Angel. I heard it whispered during briefings, murmured near the fuel trucks. A nickname born not from a call sign, but from the moment a few of us came back from what should have been the end. The rookies stared a little longer when I walked by now. Not out of doubt, but hope. I taught my first class under the floodlights near the North Hangar. No PowerPoints. No polished videos. Just a battered A10 with the scars to prove the stories. I walked them through what mattered. Not checklists, but decisions. How to hear the shift in wind through your frame. How to feel when a storm gives you cover instead of swallowing you. How to fly through a valley like it's your last corridor on Earth and still come out the other side ready for more. One of them, new kid, barely 20, asked if I was scared that day. I didn't lie. Yeah, I said. Fear's part of the job. It's not about avoiding it. It's about choosing what you'll fear more. He nodded slowly. And what did you fear most? He asked. I didn't have to think. Losing them. That was it. The center of it all. You don't dive into fire because you're brave. You do it because someone else is depending on your wings not to fold. That's what they'll carry with them, those new pilots. Not stories of glory or medals, but the reason behind the mission. Before I left the hangar that night, I added one thing to the nose of my Warthog, beneath the shark mouth, beside the call sign. 3 simple words, stenciled in quiet defiance. We bring them back. And if one day someone else climbs into my cockpit, when my time's up and the sky calls another soul, I hope they feel it too. That legacy, that promise. Not every angel has wings. Some have teeth. Some fly slow and low, scarred and old, but never break. And some, if they're lucky, get remembered not for being perfect, but for being the ones who never left anyone behind.